Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. So today I decided to talk about another type of poetry which is actually very popular right now but not fully understood. Haikus. A few months ago I was in this beautiful English bookstore in Brussels, Waterstones, and I saw that book on the poetry shelves and I hesitated to buy it because I was a bit broke at the time. But I saw this beautiful book. I want to have it in my collection. I want to understand haikus better. I already have one book, but I want another one, a different one. And I hesitated and I didn't buy it straight away. At some point I realized I really wanted that book. I went back to the store and the book wasn't there anymore. So I went to Amazon, bought it and shipped it all the way from the USA. This beautiful book here that I'm really happy now to have in my collection. And so, as you know that in all of my recent videos I started drinking coffee as I was talking about different subjects, different poems. This time I decided to do something different. I bought this beautiful Japanese tea bowl and I made myself a cup of tea that I bought this tea bowl only for this occasion. I saw that well, it was actually better to talk about poetry and haikus, from Japan, with a Japanese tea bowl. So as you know, haikus are very short poems known for their conciseness. They are arranged in 3 lines in 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and another 5 syllables. This is the formal aspect, the well-known way of writing a haiku, the standard way of doing it. So haikus have become increasingly popular and are a very important part of the Japanese culture. If you watch the show Shogun, you will often hear haikus. For example, one of the main characters, Mariko, is known for being a really good poet, and at some point in the show you will hear her recite some of her haikus, which are actually a very important part of the story itself. And if you play the amazing game Ghost of Tsushima, which gonna make you smile, which is gonna give you a great time, which is going to make you cry, at some point in the game you can sit down in different places and compose your own haikus. And a lot of people are actually writing haikus in different languages such as Dutch, English, French, many languages which are not obviously the Japanese language. But one thing to know, and it goes without saying, that Japanese is a very different language from the other languages that I cited. In some of my previous videos I explained how difficult it is sometimes to translate poems from one language to the other, especially when the languages are belonging to different family, such as from a Latin language to a Germanic language. You're gonna lose a lot of the essence of what makes the poem in the original language beautiful. And then here we are not talking about Indo-European language, we are talking about a language which is even more different. So you can imagine that translating haikus from the Japanese language to the English or other Indo-European languages is very, very difficult. And so a lot of people are actually trying to write directly into their own language haikus, which I think is great because haikus can express very incredible things that we're gonna go over a bit later in the video. I'm gonna tell you what I think haikus are about and what I think we can learn from this art of haikus. But to start with, I think that if you want to understand haikus and if you want to write haikus or read haikus in different languages, it is only fair and interesting and very good to know where haikus come from and to have at least a basic understanding of the Japanese language. So in the past I started studying Japanese and I have a very basic understanding of the Japanese language. So the first thing to know about the Japanese language is that it has 3 alphabets: hiraganas, katakanas, kanjis. Hiraganas and katakanas are based on sound, but hiraganas are used for the Japanese words, whereas katakanas are used for the foreign words coming from, for example, the English language, but even the French language or the Chinese language. And kanjis are actually coming from the Chinese symbol based on ideas. And when you read a Japanese sentence, you will often see all 3 alphabets together in the same sentence. So here you have hiraganas. As you can see, they have a bit of a curved shape, and here you have all the sound where you can learn the hiraganas. A, I, U, E, O. Kaki, ku, keko. Sa, shi, su, se, so, and so forth. And here different sounds. And those are all the hiraganas based on sounds. Here you have the katakanas for the foreign words. As you can see, the shape is very different. It's less curvy and more straight. And you have actually the same sound. So you have already here two different alphabets for different things. I have two books on kanjis. There's one for drills and just one for the explanation. So you have different types of kanji. For example, this one shows an idea, an older sister, younger brother, younger sister. So you see different types of ideas. These kanjis are made of different symbols. This one shows, I think, a woman. And so now you've heard an explanation on the three different Japanese alphabets coming from an expert of the Japanese language. Not at all. I am not an expert at all. I just started studying the language and I have a very basic knowledge of it. But I wanted to introduce you to these three alphabets to show you a little bit how the Japanese language works and to make you understand that because this language works very differently, the type of poetry that you can have and haikus work differently. So sometimes translating haikus directly from Japanese to those different languages can be very tricky. And I do believe that we need to understand that in order to write haikus in those different languages as well. So I wrote here some very basic sentences in Japanese with my very beautiful handwriting. And as you can see, they are mixed between, here kanjis and the hiraganas and even katakanas. For example, here, watashi wa Perugijin desu. I am Belgian. Perugijin, Belgian. Here we have a kanji, here we have katakanas, here we have hiraganas, and here we have furonsugo wa anashimasu. I speak French. Nihongo ga chotto wakarimasu. I understand Japanese a little bit. Watashi wa Belgijin desu. Furonsugo wa anashimasu. Nihongo ga wakarimasu. I am Belgian, I speak French, and I understand Japanese a little bit. So, obviously, I didn't want to show you that to confuse you, but to show you how those different alphabets are being mixed in different language, in different sentences in Japanese, and I showed you these basic sentences to illustrate that. So it's already interesting to note in these sentences how differently the language works, not just in terms of alphabet, but phrase construction. For example, here, watashi wa Belgijin desu. Watashi wa, like watashi, I, but I can just say Belgijin desu. Belgijin desu means I am Belgian, but literally means Belgian am. And furonsugo wa anashimasu. French, I speak. French speak. Nihongo ga chotto wakarimasu. Japanese, a little bit, understand. So, obviously here I'm not here to give you a Japanese lesson because I'm not qualified for that, and I'm gonna probably put some links in the description of YouTubers that really explain the Japanese language, different aspects of the Japanese culture, and I'm also gonna put another video on haikus that I found very inspiring. But I wanted to give you this quick introduction to illustrate my point that it's very difficult to translate those poems from Japanese to English and then or to other languages. And then obviously when people are trying to write haikus in these different languages, it might sound a little bit weird, it might be a bit misunderstood because haikus come from the Japanese culture, come from the Japanese language. So I believe it was important to give you this quick introduction, so to give you this idea on how the language works and to illustrate my point on that. So now that we have established that, I wanted to see with you, my viewers, what we can learn from haikus and how we can use haikus in order to express ourselves very efficiently. Haikus are known for their conciseness. They go directly to the point, and with very few words they need to express very strong and precise ideas. As I established in one of my previous videos, and I believe the first time I said that was on my first videos on haiku that I made last year, where I didn't go so much into the details, I believe that poetry is like a bridge between speech and silence. It's about saying a lot in very few words. It's a bridge between speech and silence because by saying things you break the silence. But you don't say too much, so you keep some silence to say a lot within this silence, if that makes sense. The conciseness of haikus represent that very well. Have you ever had a moment in your life, or very moments in your life where, for example, you met someone or something happened, you saw something, and this thing or this person or this moment created such a lasting impression on you, but you didn't really know how to explain it. You could make a whole speech about it, but it wouldn't do justice, or you couldn't say anything about it, but at some point you don't express it. I do believe that haiku strike that balance. You can have those small moments, this moment in time, and haikus represent them very well. So this is obviously here only my interpretation on the haiku and the thing that I believe haikus represent very well. But they represent a very precise moment in time. They bring you to the present moment. They make you observe the scene as it was, and they make you feel the things as they are. A very precise, quick instant. I believe haikus are the poems of the instant. So before we go together into the journey of discovering what the poems of this book have to offer, I have a few things I have to say. First of all, normally all haiku need to contain a seasonal word. They are all related to one of the four seasons: winter, spring, summer, or autumn. So there's going to be one of these words, and sometimes it's going to be very clear, like the snow representing the winter, or sometimes it's going to be a bit more subtle, like some elements that you're going to only see in those seasons, like an animal coming out in spring or things like that. And another thing I have to say, as I'm going to show you this book, is that you will see that it is written in three different things. There is the in the Japanese alphabet, and there is the translation in English, but there's also what we call the transliteration from the Japanese alphabet to the Latin alphabet to show the Japanese sound, which is called romaji. Romaji is how we call, writing the Japanese language in Latin, in the Latin alphabet. So we're gonna take a few poems from this book. And first of all, I'm going to make you understand the sound, to make you enjoy actually the sound of the Japanese language. I'm gonna recite it to you in the Japanese language as best as I can with my very basic understanding of the Japanese language. And then I will recite the English translation. I'm gonna pick up a few poems. So here you have one of the classic haikus that you will often hear about if you watch videos on the subject from Basho, who is a very renowned haikist, who was a Zen Buddhist monk and who wanted to use haikus in order to promote the Zen Buddhist ideology. As you can see here, you've got here the Japanese alphabet, here the kanjis and the hiraganas to show you its sound. You have more here, I told you there are three different alphabets, but here you will see more the two different, the kanjis and the hiraganas, because you don't have many foreign words, so you don't have many katakanas, maybe in more modern haikus, I don't know. So here you have the romaji and here you have the English translation. So first of all, furu ike ya kawazu tobikomu mizu no oto. So, an old pond, the splash of plunging frogs. Another thing I want to say about the Japanese language here is that here you have what we call the breaking word, ya, which kind of creates a pause in the poem, and it will be translated into the English language by a dash, An old pond, the splash of plunging frogs. An old pond, the splash of plunging frogs. Imagine staring at an old pond, a very serene moment. Everything is so still, everything is so calm and quiet. You're staring at it, it's very nice. Nothing happens, and you get lost in your thought. But all of a sudden, frogs jump in the pond. You have ripples and little waves in the pond, and you get back into the moment with this surprise of movement on the pond. In my opinion, this short poem represents a very sudden change, something that makes you look at the world as you were lost in your thought, something that switch your attention from something to something else, just something changing in the environment. It can be a very powerful moment actually when something like that happens. Another poem from the master Basho, who was born in 1644 and passed away in 1694, by the way, on spring this time. Kinomoto ni shiru mo namasu mo sakura kana. Beneath the tree, in the soups and the salad, cherry blossom everywhere. Beneath the tree, in the soups and the salad, cherry blossom everywhere. Ah, the spring, the very nice spring. What we call sakura in Japan. This moment which is one of the most popular seasons, if not the most popular season for tourists to go to Japan, the sakura season. When you have all these beautiful trees turning pink, very short time in the year, but very beautiful. All these colors all around Japan. And imagine being in your house, having a good time at the time, eating soup beneath a sakura tree, a cherry blossom. And as you are eating with your friends, as you're having a good moment, these petals fall in your soup. Interesting. Small moment. A serenity, a small moment of sharing, a small moment of just enjoying the spring. Just that. Sometimes you don't need to say much more than that, right? Higoro nikuki, karasu mo yuki no ashita kana. Even loathsome crows are transformed by morning snow. Even loathsome crows are transformed by morning snow. Loathsome crows. Crows being not very pleasant animals, not very beautiful. When they sing, they don't sing very well, it's not very nice. But in that moment of winter, when the whole landscape is covered with snow, everything is white and you see this crow, black as the night, and it's beautiful. All you can see is black and white. It reminds me actually of a moment when I was walking in the Forêt de Soigne, this big forest around Brussels. In the middle of the winter, this whole forest was covered with snow, the trees had no leaves and they were black, completely black. And I had one dog, a Belgian Shepherd, a Groenendaal, like a wolf, completely black. And as I was walking that forest with my dog running around, all I could see at the time was black, with my dogs, the trees, and white. It seemed like the world had only two colors. This poem made me think about that moment. This, like a snapshot, like a picture of that moment. And here we have another writer, Buson, who was born in 1716 and passed away in 1784. Natsukawa o kozu ureshisa yo te ni zori. Such joy in crossing a summer stream, sandals in hand. Such joy in crossing a summer stream. sandals in hand. I love that. I love that. You know, I grew up in the south of Belgium surrounded by forest. I remember this small stream making this small sound as it was running, the river flowing, like as if the river was singing. And as it was really, really hot outside, I remember walking for hours in this forest without meeting anyone. And the shadows made it like cooler. The shadows of the trees made it nicer. But at some point I remember taking off my shoes and going inside the stream with my bare feet. What a nice moment it was. Another one here from Busan. Machibito no Ashioto Toki Oshibakana. The one I yearn to meet. A footfall in the distance. Fallen leaves. The one I yearn to meet. A footfall in the distance. Fallen leaves. This one is actually one of my favorite because it says so much with very few words, like all the other poems. But here I can see a snapshot of a moment, a very picture of that instant, but at the same time I see more. I feel the feelings of the person. It's in the middle of autumn. The leaves are falling slowly, and there's somebody you really care about, maybe a loved one, not so far away. It's not so far away, but at the same time, at some point, leaves are falling and a person disappears. Or maybe it's just a moment when this person is not so far away and you enjoy autumn. It can mean so much. But I do believe there's a lot of melancholy in that poem. As again, it says so much in very few words. So here you go. I hope that quick introduction to the heart of haiku with my very basic understanding of the Japanese language was interesting to you. And I hope you enjoyed my interpretation, and I actually want to know what your interpretation of these poems is. Or maybe, what do you think we can learn from haikus? What I would actually find interesting as well is you telling me about small moments in the past, something that happened in your life that creates such a lasting impression on you, but that you didn't know really how to express. And some moments where you feel like haikus could help you express those moments. And so, yeah, that was what I wanted to do in this video. In this video, I want to do several things. First of all, I wanted to show you what we could learn from the heart of haiku, but I also believe that this art is kind of misunderstood, and I wanted to give you this understanding of the Japanese language to show you where it comes from. But I also wanted to tell you what we could learn from it. At the moment, I'm actually really trying to write haikus to express those types of emotions, and that's the reason why I really wanted to see that. I do believe, in my opinion, that they can bring a lot of serenity. They can give you a lot of peace of mind, and they really bridge this silence and speech together. So what I'm gonna do in the future is I'm going to take like American haikus or maybe English haikus and see how we can interpret them and what we can learn from them, and how they are maybe different from Japanese haikus. But in the meantime, I hope you have a good day and enjoy your tea. Thank you.